Oh, whoa, this is Laner Dominguez. Okay, here we go. I have the weight of all the birds in the world on my shoulders right now. I want the world to hear the eagle soar.
Woo! Let's go! It's official, everyone. The Birds opening has finally claimed a victim in the world's active top 10. Unlike a video I released a few weeks ago in which I beat a former Super GM, in this video we're going to be going over a recent game I played against the world's current number 8. To be clear, this isn't like the old number 8, the number 8 from 30 years ago. No, this is the number 8 in the world right today. And he lost to the Bird opening. Stay tuned.
Laner Dominguez has been one of the world's elite GMs for nearly 20 years now. He crossed 2,700 in 2007, and ever since then he's been above the mark. That's an incredible amount of longevity for someone of his strength. And he's won several elite tournaments. He is the 2008 World Blitz champion. He's won the Capablanca Memorial, won the Dortmund tournament. Recently, he got edged out by rating from qualifying for the 2024 Candidates World Championship cycle, which is crazy. He barely missed out due to being edged out by Alireza Firouzja and Wesley So. So without further ado, let's get to the game.
So here we are at the game. Now, this game was played in the third round of a Title Tuesday. I had 2 out of 2 going into this. I was feeling excited. I thought that there was a good chance I would get one of the strongest players, and indeed I am facing Laner Dominguez. So the game starts out f4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, e3, e6, b3. We're going for the queenside fianchetto here with the bird. The nice structure from d2 to f4. Bishop e7, bishop b2. Notice that we're waiting out this bishop here. We want to give a check, but only after c5. c5. And those of you who follow my other videos with the Title Tuesdays, with all of those things, you're going to know that here we're supposed to play bishop b5 check. And they have 3 moves here. Knight c6 would be a mistake because we could just chop and give them the bad structure. They could play knight d7, which would be weird. And they could do what my opponent did, which is to play bishop d7. Here we trade. And it's pretty funny here, actually. I did a lot of work on this position. Queen takes is the best. Queen takes is more or less equal. My opponent instead played knight takes, which is a very logical move. In fact, though, as we're going to see, this is just a mistake. The whole idea is that when he plays for e5, sooner or later, his knight is going to be really misplaced here. His knight would rather be on c6. So castles, castles, d3. I'm going for the classic idea of just pushing e4. I want to create some solid tension with the d5 pawn. And I'm also thinking about potentially pushing e4, e5. Queen c7, knight bd2, bishop d6. And here I sort of forgot the theory. If you watch the video of me playing the game, you're going to notice that I spent a lot of time on this position. I didn't really know what to do. I couldn't remember. I knew I was supposed to be playing for e4, but I couldn't figure out the exact way to do it. And finally, I realized that I can play queen e2 here, and the idea is that if he plays e5, I play e4. I was worried about the fact that he could take on f4 here, but then I realized at the last second I can play e5, I have a fork, I have 3 pieces covering that pawn, and rook e8 does not work to freeze my pawn out because I can take, my queen is hanging, but his queen is also dropping, and I would be able to net a full bishop. So instead, now my opponent is already in trouble here. What is he going to do here? Pretty much, once I've achieved this pawn to e4, I've gotten a great position because the idea is now my knight is going to get this great c4 square. This is slowly turning into a fantastic version this is slowly turning into a fantastic version of a reversed King's Indian defense, in which I'm going to have a pawn on f5. So my opponent plays d4. If he had taken it on e4, I could take back, and we would have gotten the same type of position. This would only just be better because after knight c4, I would have an open d-file for my rook, and my bishop would be pointed at this very weak pawn on e5. Back here, my opponent makes a very logical decision here. He's settling for the fact that he's going to give my knight the c4 square, but at the very least, he's kicked my bishop off of any sort of relevance, and my bishop is now just pointed into this granite. Yeah, my bishop really hates being pointed into that granite. The good news, though, is I get f5 in, and I'm controlling all of the light scores. Look at this. Yeah, they don't deserve the red color. Let's give them the blue color. I got these beautiful pawns here, and I have a very quick play on the king side with just King's Indian style pressure. h3, g4, g5, h4, h5. Y'all know the drill. So my opponent goes for knight g4. He's trying to get in there. He's trying to sneak into the e3 square. I play knight c4. Not so fast. Not so fast today, Buster. I'm covering the e3 square. He plays b5 to push my knight out. If I were to trade here, his knight would be getting in, and he would probably be okay. So I have to call him on it. And now we have a cowboy standoff. His knight is hanging, my knight is hanging. If he goes back with his knight, I go back with my knight. And nothing has really been accomplished here. I've ended up getting a free move towards my kingside play. He's gotten a free move towards his queenside play. Notice that in this position, with my pawns like this, and with him already having more space due to this massive d4 boulder, he is going to be playing for c4 at some point to try to open up the position on the queenside. It's going to take a lot of time though, obviously, right? I have like 4 pieces covering that at the moment. So he would need to play knight b6, and he'd probably need to do something else as well. Like if he plays knight b6 here, I could play a4. He'd play a6 to defend. Of course, he does not want to move this pawn when I get the c4 square. He plays a6. I play g4. And even now, I don't think he can play c4 because I would play a5, kick his knight out, and then ultimately snack on c4. So very, very tricky stuff on his part. Instead, he just chose to chop. He chops, I chop, and yeah, the bird is looking better and better. Notice that as things get traded off, if he trades here, we've just opened up a weak square for me here and a weak pawn on c5 on an open c-file now. So that's the really nice thing about having all my pawns so harmoniously placed on light squares, that pretty much no matter how the position twists or turns, my pieces are always going to be great. My knight in most cases can count on the c4 square. His bishop is always going to be bad, being pointed into its own pawns. His knight is also going to be bad, pointed into its own pawns. Meanwhile, I have this really healthy phalanx here pointed into his king side, and I'm going to just be able to throw my pawns up the board, whether it's this pawn or whether it's this pawn on g4. So takes. He played c3. This is in some ways good, in some ways bad. I think it's probably the best idea here, because at least he's getting some squares, he's pushing my bishop away, and he is also stopping my knight from ever being able to go to c4, which is one of the nice squares. But the flip side here is that after bishop c1, look at this, the position is extremely closed off. There is literally like a blue zone here, and there is a red zone. Okay, that was the same color. I didn't mean to do that. Let's let's have that be a red zone. Yeah, there's like a red zone here and a blue zone here. Right, it's very hard for him to look into the blue zone. For the moment, I guess he could look at h6 maybe a little, but as soon as I play g5, that's not going to happen. I have the blue zone, he has the red zone. Notice that we have these 2 mountains of pawns here. Maybe I should have drawn the red zone a little bit elsewhere. Yeah, this is the red zone. And notice that because the mountains of pawns are lining up against each other, we have the Andes Mountains here. For those who don't know, the Andes Mountains, or maybe the Rockies would be better, but pretty much we have this mountain range that just segments the board in 2. No one is getting over the mountain for quite some time. Technically, one piece can traverse the mountain, but it's going to take a really long time. Like, for this knight to get over the mountain, it could go here, but then we would play g5. Okay, yeah, so for instance, if we played g5 first, the knight would not be able to get over the mountain. The knight would need to go... I don't even know how the knight would get over. The knight probably couldn't. For the bishop to get over, it would have to go here, here, and finally get over that way. And that would be very tricky. Whereas everything, yeah, this is the mountain. So... what does this mean in general for the play? This means that I'm going to be playing with a completely free hand on the king side. He's going to be playing with a more or less free hand on the queen side, but if we notice, my structure is very, very healthy on the queen side. I have, yeah, they don't deserve that. I have, let me give them the blue color. I have blue pawns here, very, very little weaknesses here. b3 is technically exposed, but it's very secure. It's solid as a rock. Where was that? Okay, there it is. That's the, I'm always mixing up the arrows. So yeah, he's going to be struggling for play here on the queen side. He doesn't really have anything to target. I have a very clear target, on the other hand. I have his king. I'm just going to throw my pawns forward and try to mate him. a5. He wants to play a4 and open things up. I said, no thank you, mister. I played a4 myself. Rook b8. g5. I'm just throwing my pawns up. I want to get my pawns up. I want to push my pawns to g4 and probably put my pieces on this open h-file. That could be really serious. Queen c6. I throw my pawn forward again, g4, c4. This is pretty predictable stuff. This is Grandmaster level stuff here. What does he need to do here? He needs to open the position desperately quickly on the queen side. If he does not open the position quickly on the queen side, then literally he's going to have no play whatsoever. His only hope here is to break through on the queen side, somehow outmaneuver me, and then slowly break through this way. And if he can win this pawn, then he can start bothering my pieces over on this side of the mountain. So c4 is a very logical move. Notice if I take here, I really weaken this. If I take, he plays this, and he's going to get snacking. And apart from that, he also can play d3 and completely overwhelm me now. After d3 takes, the position is entirely open. My pieces are undone. The mountain is completely gone here, and so while I am up a pawn, my king now risks just being weak with all of his pawns being so far advanced. And notice that there are now beginning to be windows opened up into my king side. Back in that position with the mountain, none of these angles were open. So g4, c4, I take with b. I'm trying to keep the mountain as closed as possible. No thank you, sir. The mountain is staying closed today. Rook b4. And here already the computer was pointing out that I have a very simple win here. I should just play f6. The idea is I'm going to take. If he plays g6, I just play queen h2, queen h6, and I can go for checkmate. If he plays rook e8, queen h6 is met with bishop f8, so I can't do it just yet. But I'm going to play queen h4, rook f2, rook h2, and deliver a checkmate very soon on h7. So this would have been a much better, and instead I just played queen h2. He takes on a4. Here, I slipped up a little bit. I played rook b1, which is objectively not the best. I need to just do my best to keep the position as close as possible. I should have just traded. His queen is not breaking through here anytime soon. I can play f6 now. I'm going to take on g7. I guess my problem here was that I just didn't like the fact that his queen was eyeing this pawn, and I wanted to be able to play rook f2 and defend this pawn, but at the same time, if I play rook f2 here, his queen can break through on a1. And this is a little tricky. If his queen goes to a1, he's attacking my bishop, I would have to go back. I'm not immediately breaking through here because these pawns are holding my pieces back. This is a classic example of mountain-like play, right? He's trying to break through on the mountain. I want to keep him from getting in the mountain, because once he gets in the mountain, he's going to start snacking on the mountain, and then his pieces are just going to come flooding in. So there are some situations where you could abandon the mountain and let him start snacking, but in that case, you need to make sure that you have a checkmate pretty much immediately. So I played rook b1. But yeah, as I said, I could have just taken and played f6, and that would have been the end of the game. Rook b1. He should have probably played rook b4 here. The idea is the mountain is going to crumble here. He's going to play b3 soon enough, and then knight c5, knight takes d3. White still has an advantage here. White is better in pretty much all of these positions. But at the same time, you know, it's better for the mountain to crumble than for the mountain to stand. That's how it works. This mountain is what guarantees me my kingside play. I think if there's one lesson to take from this game, you know, if you have a mountain, the Soviet rule goes, the Soviet expression is, when the center is closed, attack on the flanks. And here, with the mountains so fixed, so solid, notice that none of these pawns can ever trade for each other, right? You see that? None of those, if these pawns could move backwards, if this pawn could move back here, or this pawn could move back here, or this pawn could move back here, then the mountain could start getting traded off. But the pawns are frozen in place now. There's no way for any of those pawns to ever get traded. And for that reason, the mountain is sealed shut. So rook a2, my opponent's just going for it. He wants to attack c2. I play rook f2, I'm defending c2. And he has an enormous problem in his hands. I'm just going to play queen h4 and rook h2. a4. He really has nothing to do at this point. This is pretty much a disastrous position. Notice that even though I had missed this f6 idea, I am going for an idea that's slightly different. I'm going for g6 and knight g5, which is also going to be very strong. g6 is going to attack two pawns and force open a file. It's going to be very dangerous stuff. a4, queen h4, rook e8. Here I played g6. I'm threatening a lot of different checkmates. If he plays h6, I would just take. He has managed to keep the h-file closed, but after g5, everything is opening up. I'm going to chop through here. My knight is chopping through. My queen could give a check. This is just a disaster. So he takes. I take. And at this point now, I was still a little worried about what I would do if h6. I guess here, though, the thing is at the end of the day, the mountain has opened. Notice that without these pawns here, now he can finally get in. Even so, I still have an imminent superiority. For the moment, I still have an immediate superiority in pieces and piece placement on the king side. I could play g5 and start attacking this. I'm thinking maybe g5 doesn't work. Bishop e7 and he's attacking this, so I might need to be a bit more strategic. Something like bishop takes h6 looks very good. Look at this. If he plays bishop e7, we play bishop g5, and we're just threatening checkmate here. He can't take on g6 because we would take on e7, and if he takes on g5, we check. Here, we check. And if he goes here, I guess technically he could run away, but yeah, this is completely over. I have these two pawns here. This pawn is likely going to become a queen here. Something like check, here, There should be a lot of moves here, honestly. I would assume just something like, maybe the check wasn't good, actually. Just queen f7 here, and g7, g8 is going to be decisive. But yeah, h6 would have been a good idea. Takes, and if takes, queen takes. Yeah, this is still over. Look at this. I'm just threatening this mate here. He could defend it with knight f8, and I play rook h2, and I'm going to give checkmate on h8. So knight f8. I took. I was hoping that he would take here, and in this position I was going to play rook h2, attack his knight. He goes here, I go here. Queen h8 is unstoppable, and he's still going to have to start hemorrhaging material. He can survive with his king, but check here, check. His knight is going to drop, and the attack honestly is just going to continue at full pace, so there's really nothing to worry about here. Instead he played a move I had missed. Instead he played the move king h8 here. This was quite surprising to me, because literally, like, I was so hopeful about just checkmating him on the h-file. I completely missed king h8. Luckily for me, the attack is just too strong, and after knight g5, he let his time run down a little bit, but he resigned. It's unstoppable. I'm threatening knight f7. He has no way to deal with it. If he plays rook e7, then I can snack on the f8 knight with checkmate. So, yeah, this was the end of the game. I beat a world number 8 player in the world. I know I said that twice, but it's insane. The world number 8 player, by far the strongest player I've ever beaten in Blitz, Classical, or Rapid. So I wanted to just mention a few things here. If you notice in the final position here, let's go back for a second. Look at my clock. I only spent 2 minutes on this game. My opponent spent 3. And meanwhile, I was able to really, really outplay him here. We have 88.9% accuracy. That's not perfect, honestly. But he had 77.9, so his performance was the equivalent of like a 2450, right? So 2650 on chess.com, that's like, I don't know, like 2400 FIDE pretty much. I wanted to talk about this. So why is his level so drastically different from his current level? I'm not posting this video to say, oh, he's a bad player or anything like that. This is one of the best players in the world, to be clear. He deserves everything he has. He's earned his title. He's been above 2700 for an enormous amount of time. Why was I able to outplay him so badly? Well, the reason why is that though he is 2750 in normal chess, the bird takes him into an unknown forest. Every single structure in chess you are going to have a different level with. And the idea of the bird is that the bird is going to take your opponents into a structure that's so unorthodox, so unlike their normal positions, that they're going to play at a drastically reduced level than what they're currently capable of. And on the flip side, because you know the bird well, because you're experienced in the bird, you're going to play it far above your level. So while normally my level in real chess is, I don't know, like 2500 FIDE, my current rating is 2460, but, you know, my normal rating was like 2500 FIDE. You could say that that was around like 2800, but that would be around 2800 chess.com. So what accounts for this 250 point jump? Well, it's pretty much, I'm playing the bird. I'm playing the system that I locked myself in a room and I studied the system in depth to make the bird course. So because of that, I'm extremely good with it. Let me take you over to Microsoft Paint to explain in slightly better detail. What's up, everyone? So after a long delay, I wasn't able to figure out a way to make Microsoft Paint work, but I did open up a free version online. So pretty much what I wanted to talk about was that when you have a rating on chess.com or in Classical or in any type, like for instance, let's put him, this is Lanier. I know this seems like it's preschool stuff, but this is going to get quite instructive, honestly. He has a rating. What is his rating? His rating is 2750. Good luck to my editor figuring out how to make this look good. And anyway, so his rating is 2750. So let's put that right here. Let's say that this is 2750. Now the whole idea is that your rating is just reflective of your skill level, and your skill level is a spectrum across all different structures. Some structures you know extremely well, some structures you don't know well at all. 2750 is just the weighted average of how much you know whatever structures you play a lot. For instance, if you never know the structures that you play, then your rating is going to be pretty close to your lowest point on the spectrum. Meanwhile, if you tend to always get the positions you know the best, your rating is going to be highest on the spectrum. But the whole idea is that there is a spectrum here, right? This is the opening that Lanier knows the least. I think we could gladly estimate that it's the bird opening. And we'll put this at... Oh man, this looks hideous. We'll put this at, I don't know, like 2,400. Or 2,500. I guess... Yeah, can I delete that? How do I erase? Let me go here. Scratch that out. 2,500. 2,750. He is known for his e4, e5 positions, and he's been a king pawn player all his life. So we'll put up here, king pawn. This is a struggle to write with this, I'll tell you that. And we'll put his level at 2,900. As you can see, his top level is 2,900. His lowest level is 2,500. He tends to get positions that he knows quite frequently, more often than not. And so because of that, he rarely ever dips to this whole range around 2,500, 2,600. And so for that purpose, he's able to maintain a rating of 2,750. Now, if his opponents were able to permanently keep him playing these structures that he doesn't really know, then his rating would slowly drop because he would keep on playing structures he doesn't know. He would keep on performing and finding moves at the level of a 2,500 or 2,600. So in that situation, he would either need to study up on those structures significantly to the point where he's able to bring those structures back to his current level, or his rating would just drop and that would be the end of it. Now, if we look at me, I really want to explain why I outplayed this guy. Because the thing is on every other metric, this guy is an astronomically better player than I am. He's been playing the chess for far longer. He's been studying more. He knows more about pretty much king pawn positions. I honestly might know more about queen pawn positions because from what I understand, he's a lifelong king pawn player. But he's an unbelievably strong player. He's like 300 points above me, FIDE. So that would be, yeah, that's an enormous amount, everyone. You can generally assume that you double your level every 100 points, something like that, maybe every 120 points. And so he's more or less 2.5 times as good as me. So if we look at here, this is the position. Here I am. I'll give my current rating of... I'll bump my rating up by like 20 points because I do feel that my rating... I lost some games early on in the bird. And before then I was 2,480. So we're going to put my rating at 2,480. At my very peak, I think I can play at like 2,600. And what would that opening be? What would the opening that I'm most certain in, that I'm most skilled relative to everyone else in be? Well, that would be bird opening. That would be right here. So, as we can notice, we're starting to understand why I was able to outplay him. Even though at normal rates, at general levels on the spectrum, if we were to play any opening randomly, this guy would completely wax me. He would completely wipe the floor with me. The fact is, when we play the bird opening, we get our opponents into something that they don't know, and we know an enormous amount. And so in the end, I was able to exploit the fact that in this one opening, I'm 100 points stronger than him. Meanwhile, at my worst, honestly, I've studied a lot of openings. I'm not really sure what my lowest level would be. I would put this at like 2,400. I think the lower bound of my skill level is quite close to my rating. I'm thinking about, yeah, for 2,400, what opening do I not know almost at all? I've studied almost all of them at this point. I guess, I don't know, Queen's Gambit declined, so we could put Q, G, D. I don't know that well. But I hope you're understanding this, right? The whole idea is that ratings are reflective of the larger spectrum. And in general, if you can make sure to get your opponents into what you know and what they don't, then you're going to be able to exploit this and consistently keep the game somewhere where you're in this bound and where they're in the lower bound. So I hope this was instructive. Let me know if you liked my drawing. I might be bringing Microsoft Paint in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video. This was one of several games in Title Tuesday that I played that were really incredible. I also played Anish Giri. I played David Navarra. I played a lot of strong GMs. And I will be releasing videos on those games as well in the future. If you want to see the entire Title Tuesday or you want to see me react to this game, it was full of emotion, honestly. I got really excited when I beat this guy. Woo! If you want to see that, I will put it somewhere in the end screens. And yeah, take care. Thanks for watching.